Hello, my name is Maria Bavetta and I'm co-founder of Maternal OCD. I'm here this evening to speak about the impact of having perinatal OCD and what my reflections are on the other side of recovery. Now, there's a Japanese proverb that is typically used to encourage the letting go of sunken costs in relationships, careers, and the like, but I read it the other day and I think very accurately captures the essence of the impact of perinatal OCD. The longer you stay on the wrong train, the more expensive it is to get home. Now, that perinatal OCD train cost me time, it cost me relationships, it cost me physically. I was 1.5 stone less than what I am now, and it gifted me with blame and guilt that was off the scale. Sometimes I couldn't even cuddle my children. Now, that's the impact I need you to hold on to, and that's why it matters that perinatal OCD must be understood. So, before we think about now and the future, I want to share what the obsessional thinking feels like when you're suffering with perinatal OCD, the terror you feel, and you have no treatment to guide you in your thinking. Bottom line, I thought I was on the right train. I thought I was doing the right thing at all times. Actually, I couldn't understand, why aren't other mothers on this train? Why can't they see what I can see? The reason I thought I was on the right train was because of the vivid, intrusive images that my brain was creating. An example is I'm in the hospital with the children having their stomachs pumped because I accidentally spilt bleach and didn't realise. Or the intrusive thoughts, you didn't shut the door properly and someone's going to get in the house, take all the baby's precious teddies, and they won't be able to seek comfort. So I'd go back and pound that door and make sure it was shut. I actually remember a neighbour coming out to check as he thought we were getting burgled, and I would have just made something up as to the reason. Now, the reason I stayed on the wrong train was the constant doubts of whether I had cleaned enough or checked enough to prevent harm, so the spiral began. Now, we know that it's often not the wisest time to make a decision when you're acting from fear, but that's the fuel that keeps you on the wrong train, that drives the compulsive behaviours, and it is compelling. Now, I learnt to be the driver of the train, stop it and get off, but it wasn't easy. I was misdiagnosed, that cost me time, and that meant my suffering was prolonged. Now, that's avoidable suffering. I had treatment from general adult services, but that only got me so far in the recovery journey. So that also meant I wasn't better. The consequence was my children were not getting their mum fully, and I wasn't recovering fully to be able to enjoy parenting. But perinatal mental health services at the time were patchy, and there certainly weren't any specialist perinatal OCD services either. Now, in between our two babies, we miscarried. And as well as the memory of the loss, there is an equally vivid memory of how OCD took over. We found out there wasn't a heartbeat, and after the ultrasound, of course, had to see the consultant. So we were waiting, but I didn't want to wait in the waiting room with the other pregnant women, and I can see that's understandable. So we waited in the corridor. I was walking up and down, but in an odd way, and my husband could see what I was doing. I was avoiding any red or brown stains on the floor as the OCD was loudly telling me this could be contaminated bodily substances or fluid. Now, I'd already feared I'd killed one baby in my belly, so I'd better be very careful so I don't kill my other baby at home. We went into the consultant's office and I broke down. But the tears were only partially for the loss. The more louder thought, or actually the question I asked the consultant was, did I kill the baby? Did my anxiety kill the baby? Did my OCD kill the baby? Now, I hope you can hear the burden of inflated responsibility. I mean, try to imagine carrying that burden of death. My breakthrough moment was being eligible for a research trial run by Dr. Fiona Chalacombe, which instead of 12 weekly sessions of CBT, I had 4 afternoons across 2 weeks of intensive CBT, but with a specific perinatal lens. So that's the pregnancy and postnatal stage. And my therapist, who always needs a name check, Dr. Abigail Rowe, gave me a safe space to share my thoughts without judgment. We covered all the cognitive work. We spoke about the unique lens of parenthood. We went out together and conducted exposure and response prevention, the reality testing. And because it was so intensive and had the lens of that perinatal window, it meant it was relevant for me in that period. So it made sense. I felt heard as a mum, and Abby guided me to a place where my reaction to my OCD thoughts were considered and accepting rather than reactionary. Now, I've got so many tools and not enough time to share them, but I did want to share the OCD-free mum approach, where I chose someone whose parenting I admired. And when OCD was knocking, I would act as if I was someone else, which at the beginning was very mechanical, but then became like breathing. And it was me, not me acting as if. I mean, it was basically going for a test drive on the right train. Look, I remember some standout moments, and they're including remembering I forgot to carry out a compulsion, which was so very empowering. And it gave me strength to live in the anti-OCD world and go against the grain. So that became a commonplace for me to be able to put my 2 fingers up to the OCD bully. Last week, I was watching a program where a woman hadn't left her house for 8 years and the area was being evacuated because of an earthquake, and it was a mandatory evacuation. The scene showed her put her feet over the threshold at the exact moment the quake shook her house, and she was in an accident. So she said to the police officer, "Well, I told you it wasn't safe to leave the house." And the police officer said, "Well, maybe, but you survived, didn't you?" And that's the learning. Now, after completing my intense treatment of perinatal OCD, as expected, I filled out a blueprint to help with maintaining recovery and to support relapse prevention. As I was completing it and I listed what I would need to keep my recovery alive, I couldn't understand. Why wasn't this available for all women and just out there? So I started to write a project plan and realised this was going to be bigger than me. So I approached my dear friend Diana Wilson, a fellow survivor of perinatal OCD, and together we created the charity Maternal OCD, which is run by mothers with lived experience and supported by several world-leading clinicians and researchers. We provided training to healthcare professionals, delivered talks at conferences across the world, campaigned for the inclusion of perinatal OCD in guidelines and services and training, and supported research and co-created support materials to aid recovery. So please do take a moment to visit maternalOCD.org. Have a look around. Our door is open to suggestions and future projects. So to the healthcare professionals in the audience, what made the difference to me and enabled my recovery was that specialist perinatal OCD lens. So please do take up any CPD opportunity that will inform that unique period in a mother's journey. To academics in the audience, this method of treatment was born out of research to test the impact of intensive CBT for perinatal OCD. So keep going. Keep finding ways to support the understanding, diagnosis, and treatment of perinatal OCD. And to women and families out there, there's hope. With the right treatment, recovery is possible, and cut yourself some slack. This is a disorder. Your brain just isn't working properly, and with the right therapist, you can understand it and rewire, because perinatal OCD is a treatable disorder. Being on the wrong train is exhausting. It wastes precious time being on that wrong train, and you can't get a refund. You can't claim that precious time back. So please prioritize whatever is needed to support recovery. Trust me, it's worth it.